Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cornerstone Press podcast. I'm Claire Haneke, your Director of Operations and host for this podcast for today. And today we are going to be talking about social media and events and promotions. First, we're going to be talking with Caitlin, and she is going to tell you all about our social media that we have run specifically for responsible adults this semester. And then after that, we are going to be talking with Morgan, our Executive Marketing Director, and she's going to tell you about the marketing initiatives that we have run this semester, specifically our Writers Workshop and our book launch for Patricia Ann McNair's Responsible Adults. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the interviews. Thank you. So welcome to the podcast, Caitlin. We're so happy to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So do you just want to tell everyone who you are and what you do for Cornerstone Press?
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, my name is Caitlin. I am the social media manager for Cornerstone this semester. I am an English education major and a creative writing minor. So, I take care of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the social media aspects.
What made you want to get involved with the press?
Well, a part of my creative writing minor, Cornerstone was one of the options for the classes that I could take, and my advisor really encouraged it, and I've just seen so much positive feedback with the press. I knew, of course, it's a publishing class, so I've always thought like, oh, like wouldn't it be cool to publish a book in college? So finally had room for my schedule, and I was like, I need to do this before I graduate. So I finally found room, and I was so excited to finally start it.
Well, I know we're all really excited to have you. You've done great work with our social media this year. So, what about social media specifically do you like doing?
I honestly think that if I wasn't going into education or if I wasn't going into English, I would probably be a PR major. I'm not sure why. I think that just through my own experience, and I probably spend way too much time on social media than I would like to admit. I just have kind of an inclination and kind of a knack for it. I know what people like and I know what people don't like. And I really like the design aspect of it as well. I just really like being able to bring out my creative side. And I really love that in Cornerstone Press, I get to involve the English education part of it and then also the social media side of it. So I get to involve books and reading, and which is something I really love and something I'm really passionate about. And then also do fun things with social media and talk to followers and talk to authors. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for me.
So, what specifically have you been doing like with the campaigns for Cornerstone Press this year?
So, one big thing for this semester was I wanted to showcase every individual staff member on our social media. So, I did kind of a campaign of the staff bios. So, I asked every staff member for a little bit of information from them, their major, minor, what their role is in the press, and then a favorite book or favorite quote. And I posted that on our Instagram. And I think that really helped get our engagement and our followers up because it not only boosted the confidence of our staff and allowed them to be proud of our social media and post it on their own personal stuff, but people who were already following Cornerstone on Instagram got to see the behind the scenes stuff. And I think that they weren't able to see that before. Being able to kind of see, oh, like what are they actually doing? Who are these people? Who are these amazing individuals behind the books that we purchase? Was kind of interesting because we're a student-led press. That is what our mark is. That's what we're known for. So being able to actually see the students and get to know them a little bit. So that was my campaign that I really focused on this semester.
I think it was a really successful campaign. I know so many people, as you said, like it's nice to put a face to like the business. We showcase book covers on the social media as
Mhm.
well, but it's a good change up to have those like pictures of the staff press.
Yeah, I think that looking at any business's Instagram feed, Of course, you're going to see a lot of books, and I wanted to kind of change up that content. So getting to see phases made it a little bit more interesting for all of our viewers.
So you run campaigns primarily on Facebook and Instagram, correct?
Mhm.
What about those two platforms works the best for Cornerstone Press?
Just because they're both more popular within like our area, within just our university, most of our students use Instagram. So if you're going to have a student follow us on any platform, it'll be Instagram. So that's where we're going to get the most engagement. And Instagram is photos, and photos allow us to kind of introduce things. And then also with Facebook, what I really love is that that's where all the relatives are. That's where the grandparents and the mom and dads are, and get to kind of see what their kids are doing when they're away at college. So that's kind of what I really love about both of those. They are both very similar, but so different.
What would you say is the biggest difference between Facebook campaigns and Instagram campaigns?
Facebook is definitely more traditional. Instagram is where I get to kind of have more fun and like kind of do more design, curated things. Instagram, I would say I get to have more fun and try out new things just because of the audience. Whereas Facebook, that's where we do a lot more purchasing and a lot more sales because we have Facebook Marketplace and like you can kind of post offers with your posts. Facebook is definitely more business savvy, whereas Instagram is more aesthetically pleasing, if that makes sense.
I think it does. So you're saying that like Facebook is much more like sales driven. It's easier for the post to directly relate to sales, whereas Instagram is more awareness driven and just engagement with our brand.
Yes, exactly.
That makes perfect sense. What challenges have you faced this year while running our social media?
The one thing I was most concerned about and most aware about was being conscious of everybody's feelings and identities. I wanted to make sure when you post on social media, you are behind one screen, but you're posting to everybody. So I think that one thing I was concerned about, and one thing that was really a challenge was um, posting something that is perfect, something that is engaging, that is in quotes beautiful or like pleasing to the eye, but also isn't going to offend anybody. Because not that it's going to offend everybody, but I think that there's so many diverse communities in just the book community that you need to be aware of and you need to take that into consideration. And I think that if you are appealing to different audiences, that you need to be aware of that. And I think that it worked out in the end. I really love being a part of such a broad community, especially on Instagram. I try to make our account follow different types of people who review books. The biggest challenge was trying to create a diverse and a variety of posts that appeal to everybody, I guess.
I think having that awareness is like a really good thing to have and not something that people think about often, especially when most people, I would say, work with social media for like personal reasons. So they're trying to connect with people that they already know. But when you're trying to connect with a lot of people from a lot of different communities, as you said, you have to be aware of all of those different things that might turn off potential sales, but also just like potential like fans of our brand. And it's so nice to see someone like be that conscious about what they put on social media and something that I think a lot of people could learn from you.
Yeah, I think that if somebody comments on our post like, "Oh wow, like I really love the cover of that book." And I comment back. I don't want to comment the wrong pronoun or comment something that identifies them in the wrong way. And I think that if you are in charge of a social media platform, that in today's society, it is an obligation to be aware of that. And I think just in education and being in a college, like it is your job to be that way. I think that everybody has stuff to learn. And I think that if we are promoting a product, so many types of people come and purchase that product. And we're not the type of people to push that product away from people. We want everybody to enjoy it.
I think that's very well said. So, on the topic of challenges, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic has been going on this year. Has that posed any challenges or has it in any way helped social media?
Yeah, I think there were challenges and benefits. I think in terms of benefits, social media is online. So I think that it helped everybody learn to communicate better. I mean, this is my first semester with Cornerstone, so I guess I haven't known anything different. However, I would imagine that, I mean, they had communicate only email, but people learning to only have that as an option, I think it kind of helped. And I think people being on their phones more, people being on the laptop more, kind of helped our pages and helped our whole platform, YouTube, Twitter. I honestly really enjoyed being online. I think that it made our authoring transition, authoring process really smooth compared to what I've been told it was in the past. I think for challenges, I think I really learned to love everybody in our staff. So it was just hard to like see these people and then not get to spend time with them in person. Like that was hard, like because you can only get so much over Zoom. However, overall, I think it went so well because so much of our stuff can be done online. I feel like it helped us be more organized.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that this class in particular has worked really well, and we are so very fortunate because I know that's not the case for many other classes. Specific to social media, I think it's been so nice to have you heading our social media campaigns this year, especially because everyone is online more. It's essentially our only way to do outreach. If we were able to be on campus and do events in person, we would set up tables in the university center and we would be able to engage with students that way and sell our books this way. But having social media be our only form of communication, I think really forced us to optimize it and make it the best that it can be and the most engaging. And this is also my first year with the press, but I would say compared to previous years, just the volume of posts that I have seen by scrolling through has increased dramatically this year. And
Mhm.
whether or not that's just because we had you take over the press, the new press model, just new staff changes in general, or because we had to push it because of the pandemic, it's kind of impossible to say, but it's really taken off this year.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think in the past or this year compared to other years, Dr. Tangedal really wanted us to step up our social media game just because we didn't have that in-person experience with our customers. I am required to post at least once a day, whereas I think in the past they didn't have as much of a lofty goal. Because I mean, right now, if people are home all day, they're scrolling through social media much more than they were in the past. So I would agree with that. I think that social media right now is one of our only outreaches, which is unfortunate, but I think that we're making the best with our situation.
I completely agree. So, I have one last question for you while we're here. What would be your favorite part about working for the press?
I really love that there is room for mistakes. So I walked in on the first day of class and he was like, "Who wants to be social media?" And I was like, I think I do." Like, I, like, slowly raised my hand. I was like, "I really want to." Even going in, I was like, "I think I really wanna be social media, like, that's something I would really like." And thank goodness nobody else fought me for it because I would fight them. Going into this with no hard set rules, he said, "Caitlin, I trust you. Caitlin, you can do what you want. This is your position. You can do what you want with it." I love that I was given the support and the trust to do what I want. And also with the MEPS team, when I wasn't sure about something or if I wanted a little bit more encouragement, like I was always met with that. And not to say that I didn't expect that, but it was such a good feeling to have people having my back. we're a business, and I think that any business or any team needs to be supporting one another. And I really loved that I had that. And I love that I could be creative, and I love that I had so many people just being and finding so many things that they didn't know that they loved before. So
I agree. That's one of the best parts about working for the press. Just the amount of freedom that we have in general is truly amazing and not something that you really get in any other class or even in internships. I would say internships are more strict in terms of what you can and cannot do, whereas this one, it's basically like, go, run the business. You can figure it out. And if something goes wrong, we'll fix it. It was a pleasure talking to you today. Your Instagram campaigns, especially all your social media campaigns, have been amazing, and you've done
thank
such
you so
amazing work
much.
this semester. So, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we sign off?
I just want to say, if you're not following cornerstone.press on Instagram or Cornerstone Press on Facebook, you should go do that because we post every day. And you can also find our books on Amazon or our links on our social medias.
All right. Thank you again so much, Caitlin. Thank you, Caitlin, for coming and talking on the podcast. That has been our first segment. And now we're going to move on to talking with Morgan to learn more about the event planning process and promoting responsible adults. So, welcome to the podcast, Morgan. We're so happy to have you on again.
Thank you.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about your role in events and promotions, specifically talking about what you did to help promote responsible adults. So, just briefly, do you want to tell everyone who you are?
Yes, I am Morgan Frostman. I am a senior here at EWSP. I'll be graduating in May. My part in the Cornerstone Press this semester is executive marketing director. So I take care of social media. I have someone underneath me who does social media, but I kind of help with her a little bit, Caitlin. And then I also help plan the book launch and pushed that out. I did a writer's workshop, which was really fun with Patricia and McNair. So that was super fun. And yeah.
You have been really hard at work making sure that everyone knows about responsible adults. And we talked to Caitlin earlier about her role in the press and doing social media. When we joined the press, we kind of got to like volunteer for the executive positions and what we wanted to do in the press. What drew you to being the marketing director?
So I have just always been obsessed with social media. Wow, that's terrible. But I mean, we grow up in today's age and social media is always around us. So when I got the chance to combine social media and editing and publishing and writing, I was like, oh, why not? That could be fun. And then I rose my hand when Professor Tangental asked who wants to do social media, and then he named me executive, and here I am now. It was kind of stressful at first, but I really enjoyed my time.
That's kind of like the vibe that everyone says is like, yeah, we just like did this thing and I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but it turned out really well.
Yeah, it's basically Professor Tangental's like, you're gonna do this, and you're like, okay.
And then you do it and it
Yeah,
turns out great.
it's the first day of school, so you're not gonna say no.
That is true. So, as a marketing director, you touched a little bit about some of the things that you do, but what specifically is your role?
We do marketing. We have done press releases for specifically responsible adults. So we've done press releases to push that book out so people actually see the book before it comes out. I work with sales just to make sure everything is going good on past books that we've sold, as well as working with Jim to be like, hey, do we have something? Like, is the book going to be in a bookstore? I've worked with Professor Tangerol, just kind of discussing how we might be able to do a pre-order, and then working with Caitlin, specifically giving her ideas, but she kind of does her own thing because she's really good at it. But I'm like, hey, maybe if we do this, then it'd be easier to buy it, just to make sure that it's easily available to people who are interested in it, and stuff like that.
It seems like a lot of what you do is kind of making sure that everything runs cohesively within the MEPS team, which is marketing, events, promotions, and sales. Is that right?
Yep. Our department meetings are basically, how's everyone doing? Is everyone doing what they need to do? Then us coming up with ideas for all of us. And if anyone needs help, I kind of jump in. I'm like, where can I help you? Or if I need help, they help me. We're a great team this semester.
We really are. I, as the director of operations for this semester, have worked almost exclusively with the marketing events promotions team just because the other teams are in many ways more structured, and we've had to do a lot of changes with pandemic and figuring out different virtual ways to promote the book. So in a lot of ways, like, our roles are like pretty similar, and in fact you're actually going to be taking over as the director of operations next semester.
Yes, I will be a Claire Junior. I'm very excited.
Well, you're going to do great. So a lot of the event planning fell under our department, obviously, because it's the event planning department. So can you talk a little bit more about the events that we ran this semester?
Yes. So number one, well, we kind of started off the semester with, okay, what are we going to do? And I believe it was like your idea to do the writer's workshop. So I was like, okay, I'll host it. So me and Patty got together early or late November, and we hosted a writer's workshop where people got to submit their questions, and she read and she did a little writing activity. And everyone who came they were so nice. They participated, they asked questions, and then everyone who came supported Patty in a different way, whether it was her students, her colleagues, or people from UWSP who were just interested in the book. And they asked great questions, and that was just a way for us to even promote the book itself, because people who attended said, oh, have you heard about this book? And they're like, no. And then that's another person that could potentially get a sale. Also, with that, you just got to meet Patty, who is absolutely amazing. And she's just great. And then that kind of led into everyone at the writer's workshop showed up to the book launch. The book launch is something me and you kind of put our blood, sweat, and tears into, which was so rewarding. Kind of making the outline in the MEPS team and altering it, talking to Professor Tangendahl and Professor Snowbarger and Patty about the book launch, which was basically took all semester to create. And then you creating the video, introducing this press, us coming up with questions, asking people, doing the RSVP. After the book launch, I kind of sat here and I was like, it's over. I was like, okay, now what? And I'm like, okay, guess we got to do it again next semester. It's just so rewarding.
Yeah, that book launch was a beast because it was the first time that the Cornerstone Press has done like a Zoom webinar book launch, and the first time I've ever done a Zoom webinar.
Yeah, and even just coming up with how are we going to do it? We had like 6 different options of how we were going to do it. Are we going to do a regular Zoom? I think StreamYard was one. Other different streaming things. We're like, are we going to do it on Instagram Live, Facebook Live? And then we finally came up with Zoom webinar like halfway through the semester.
Yeah, and then even like when we decided that we wanted to do a Zoom webinar, it was then like figuring out the licensing, like, is that something that the university is going to let us do? And thankfully, we didn't even have to pay for it. And Zoom webinar, I think, ended up being a really good format because of how there's both a chat and a Q&A section. So people were able to like submit general comments and encouragement through the regular chat and interact with people that way. But then if people had like specific targeted questions, they could use the Q&A.
Yeah.
And I think that worked really well and smoothly for our launch.
Well, also a thing that I don't think people realize when things go virtual all of a sudden because of a pandemic that no one thought was going to happen is you have to now think of people hacking into your book launch, especially because we have everything on social media of what it's going to be. Is anyone going to hack our book launch that we worked on all semester? Thank God it didn't, because we had such a specific plan for a webinar and having to have that as a plan just in case that happened. So we had a very specific RSVP. I spent all morning of the book launch sending out RSVP emails so that the people who came to the book launch had the specific link, and then that link wasn't out to the world. Because if we would have just put that link out to the world, who knows who would have came in. And then Ehor, the tech person, I don't specifically know his name for UWSP, but he made sure and looked through all of the chats just to make sure everything was educationally appropriate. And there's just so much that goes into virtual, because if this was in person, we would have all sat around a table, everyone would have watched us, then we would have like had some drinks and it would have been done.
Yeah, and with all the discussion about hacking, the Zoom webinar was especially good for that because the only people who were visible on screen or through microphone were the panelists, which was you, me, Professor Tangadal, Professor Snowbarger, and Patricia Ann McNair. And I remember very early on, there was the discussion of it being just a massive Zoom call. And I remember being like, no, absolutely not. It cannot be that, because I was like, even in like Zoom calls of 5 people, you have people talking over each other, and like there's the awkward silence of like, oh, who's gonna ask a question first? Like you and I like simultaneously ask questions in class all the time.
Yeah. And then we just talk over each other and it's like, oh.
Yeah, so imagine that, but we had like at peak like over 70 people.
Yep.
So I think the Zoom webinar was like perfect for that specific launch because we got to have people participate but not overwhelm everyone with the participants.
Well, that's also a thing we didn't have to worry about, is everyone being on mute, because some people could not be on mute and just be heavily breathing, and then it just doesn't work.
And then it just makes everyone uncomfortable.
Yeah, the joys of being virtual for everything. But I am proud of Cornerstone Press for like coming up with the idea of the webinar, because it just worked so smoothly.
Really did. And I know that there's been discussion of when we are able to go back to in-person book launches, also including a streaming portion of it, because what was really nice is we're located in Stevens Point and Patricia Ann McNair is from Chicago, and she has a lot of friends in Chicago and from other places, and they were all able to come and be a part of the webinar and support her, which they probably all wouldn't have been able to come to Stevens Point for one night if we had just done it in person. So
Actually, on a Thursday.
yeah, on a Thursday night, I don't think a lot of people can drop everything and come to Stevens Point, but people can like tune in for an hour and a half to a stream. So if there's a blessing in disguise to the pandemic, I guess it's like forcing us to explore streaming options.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet. I always say you have to look at the silver lining of everything. That's just kind of like my look at it. So when everything went online last March, I was like, great. I am gonna have to graduate online. This is just gonna suck. But now I just turned my room into an office and literally hosted a book launch. There's the silver lining of it all. And I don't know if we would have had 74 people at a book launch if it wasn't for it all being online. Maybe, and that probably helped our sales in the long run, like pushing that out. So there's always a silver lining to everything.
Yeah, I agree. I know I had friends that were able to tune in virtually that wouldn't have been able to come up to Stevens Point. We've been discussing the pandemic, but were there any other obstacles that the pandemic posted besides the book launch itself?
Hardships, I'm not sure personally, because like I said, this is my first semester and it's just been online. But something like that's good too, I think, is communication, at least for me, has been really good. If it was online or it wasn't online, maybe there wouldn't have been great communication. Like I said, that's just my thing. But also something that just sucked personally is like, I've never met Professor Tangent in person. I've never met you in person. I've never met most of the class in person, and we just cohesively created this thing online, which I think is like crazy to me. But I also can't wait for the day where I can meet you or can meet Professor Tangent in person, when that day comes, when everything is safe to leave your house, you know?
That element of it has been pretty insane because, yeah, I've never met you. Obviously, I haven't met Caitlin. I think I've met Professor Tangadol and then maybe like 2 or 3 other people in the
Right.
class. But somehow, despite that, like we're working together so well. Like this class is essentially one giant group project, which can be pretty intimidating, like given group projects and their like bad reputations, I would say. But everything has gone so smoothly. I don't think we've had any major hiccups or setbacks because of like people not pulling their weight. Like everyone has done so much hard work to make this book happen.
Well, also Professor Tangerel I couldn't even imagine him just trying to come up with how to do this online after it being in person, especially when it's not just a normal class where you're learning and you write a paper at the end. It's you need to publish this book because we have a contract with someone and we had said that we are going to publish your book no matter what the circumstances are. So we worked with Patty, we got it done, and now we have more to do. So it's like he took on all of the stress, put everything online, and was like, we still have to do this. So he worked perfectly with the students, perfectly with the authors, and it got done. And I just think that's crazy.
It is insane how much we've done. We've both mentioned Patty a couple times, and we're both huge fans of Patty. She's been
Mhm.
wonderful to work with. You really started working with her in earnest during the writer's workshop. So can you just talk about like what it's like as a student to work with a published author?
Well, it kind of started off fangirling a little bit, I'll be honest. I mean, you just hop on a Zoom meeting with her and you're like, oh my gosh, okay. And then I just got to like know her because I feel like at first being a little timid, or like, okay, there's a published author in front of me who's 100 times smarter than me. I can't say anything. Like, but then was just like, hey, how's it going? What's the plan? I can't wait for it. I'm so excited. What did you do today? Did you have any classes today? And it's just, I was like, wow, she is so nice. She's so caring. She's just a great person and made everything this semester so easy. She would send me a text after the writer's workshop and was like, you did great. I can't wait for the book launch. And then it just kind of gives you more motivation. And like, even after the book launch, it was like, you and Claire did so good, blah, blah, blah. And it just gives you motivation. And she's just like the perfect author to work for, especially during a global pandemic.
Absolutely. And during the book launch as well, like you and I had like compiled all of these questions. I had gathered stuff that people had asked when they signed up, and you were monitoring the chat, getting questions from there. But then, like, every once in a while, she would just flip the script and be like, well, that's a great question. And then, like, I have this wonderful question for you. So she was very conscious that this was a student press and that the book launch was to promote her book and to celebrate her. But she also really wanted us to be a part of it and to celebrate the students working there as well. And I think that, especially for a student press and just a press in general, like acknowledging how collaborative a book is. Before this class, I've always thought of books as being like a very solitary activity. And after this, realizing how many people come together to make a book, like in many ways, it's like more like a movie production than I ever thought it would be.
It's absolutely crazy. I didn't even know there was like an acquisition process before this. Like, I just thought you gave your book to a publisher and then it was on a shelf. But that is just like not how it works. There is so much to do. I mean, how long has this book taken from start to finish? A year?
I think we acquired it a year ago and started working earnestly on it in late spring. I know in the summer was when we really started like hardcore editing and book design. And then essentially the book, like in terms of the editing and design, was all pretty much done by the time our semester started, which is why I think this semester in particular, the MEPS team has been most involved in responsible adults because really all that was done left after the ARCs were printed in August was to like go through them, make sure that everything was formatted correctly, like find a couple like mistakes that we had missed in the first round, and then just the fine tuning stuff. But our department had to like start from scratch for the promotions.
Right. And even like promotions, looking at it, looking at percentages of who is seeing this post and how can we boost this post and how can we get more people to see our things is just crazy. Because when I think of, okay, I'm going to major in English, I didn't think that I was going to be looking at percentages of how many people see that we're publishing a book, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, I am originally a communications major and I still am, but I actually added a English major last semester. This is my first semester as a full-time English major, and this
Well,
class especially,
we love to have you.
it's fun to be here. This semester, though, I've done so much more like practical communications work. For me, that's been really fun because you can see like how compatible those things are. And a lot of people, when like you tell them, oh, I'm majoring in English, they're like, oh, so you just like read all the time. It's like, well, no, I actually published a book, but sure, you can think that.
Yeah, and that's just like how great UWSP is. It's you don't just sit and write and read forever. You are actually shoved into the life of being, and like this is how our lives will look after we graduate and get a career in editing and publishing. I'm like, we're ready, that's crazy.
Yeah, having like this experience on a resume is such a benefit for us as future workers. Like, there's not a lot of universities that have student presses like this and ones that allow their students to be so hands-on and independent.
Well, that's like, I don't think Professor Tangental told us what to do at all this semester. Like, we just did it.
Yeah. He was basically like, you're gonna the only thing he said was, you're gonna run the book launch for responsible adults and any other events and promotions that you want to run for that too. Like, the writers workshop, I believe, was my idea because Patty is a creative writing professor at Columbia College Chicago. And I knew right away, I was like, well, she's a teacher and she's a published writer. People are going to want to come to that book launch because she's going to have really good things to say.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I was so sad that the time that worked best for her to host it was during one of my other classes. So I didn't even get to go. But I know that you took it over and did such a good job with it.
Yeah, and it will be on Facebook eventually for everyone to watch. So that's something everyone can look forward to. The writers workshop and book launch should be available within the next coming months because of like editing and everything, especially during finals time. But everyone will be able to watch it and get to know Patty, how we got to know her. And I promise everyone watching this and listening, you are going to love Patty as much as we do.
Absolutely. And then you're going to love her work even more because
Oh,
she's such
hmm
such a good writer and her stories are so powerful.
yeah, she's a genius. That's all I can say. She's a genius.
Truly. So I have one last question for you today, and that is, what has your favorite part been of working for the press?
Oh my goodness. That's a hard one because I love everything. But I think I have two. So number one, the kind of confidence that it brings you as a student. Because I think that before this semester, I thought I was just scooting by, like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna have a degree. Cool. I didn't really do that much work. At least that's what I thought. You write 20 papers a semester and you're done. But then after the book launch, I kind of like was like, this is crazy. We just published a book and it's going to be for sale. So that was kind of like the confidence it brings you and like the proudness that you yourself has after you complete something that big. And I feel like the whole press should have that kind of confidence and proudness because everyone had a foot into creating such a wonderful book and publishing a book. Especially Patty. And then number two is just getting to know everyone on a personal level because I don't know if when everything was in person and I just was sitting writing 20 papers and reading 10 books, I don't even know if I knew any of my classmates. You will have a discussion about what Hemingway's themes were, but you don't like get to know someone on a personal level like that. So I think that's something that I really liked is getting to know people. How are you? What are you doing today? I need to have a meeting with you at this time. And then also coming together with something like a book launch and then sharing the happiness that everyone has.
I completely agree. Similar to what you said, I think my favorite part about working with the press is having like a finished product at the end of it. There's something so satisfying about that. And it's actually like one of the main reasons why I wanted to add an English major and do this type of work because I love being done with something and putting a lot of work into it and then being done. and knowing that you'll have more work, but on different projects. Like, I haven't gotten my copy of Responsible Adults yet, but I can't wait to, because then I get to like pour through it and look at it and be like, this is a thing that I helped make happen and that all my classmates helped make happen, and our names are listed in the book.
Yeah.
And it's so cool, and it's such a unique experience for an undergraduate student that is so rare.
Well, I think that we're one of the only people in the United States, or not people, schools, one of them, to be able to do this. Like, I think we were talking the other day with Colton, I think, and he's like, yeah, I'm from California and I came to do this. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like you came from California to the middle of Wisconsin, like specifically for our, like the experiences that our small state university can have. And I'm a big advocate of smaller universities, and I really like the hands-on and one-on-one experiences that they can provide. And I think the Cornerstone Press is a perfect example of that.
I loved working for the press this semester. It's one of my greatest accomplishments as a college student, I think.
I would agree, and you have done so much incredible work for it, and you should be very, very proud.
So have you, Claire. I only learned from the best.
Aw, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to say to our listeners before we sign off?
Do not forget to buy your copy of Responsible Adults. It's available for pre-sale right now as of December 7th, but when this podcast comes out, you should be able to buy it. Professor Tangedal will be working diligently to ship that out to you. You can go to our website on UWSP's page, Cornerstone Press, or in our Linktree bio on Instagram and buy that. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us. But it's been a pleasure being on the podcast, Claire. You are a wonderful host.
Thank you. As always, it's been a pleasure having you, and I can't wait to see the wonderful work you do next semester as the Director of Operations. Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right, everyone, that has been our podcast for today. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, we appreciate all of your support, whether it's listens or purchases. And please, as Caitlin and Morgan have said, follow the Cornerstone Press on social media, on our Instagram and on our Facebook. And if you're interested in purchasing any of our books, you can now purchase them directly from our website, which is uwsp.edu/Cornerstone/pages/books.aspx. And from there, you can see all of our titles, and there will be a button there where you can purchase it directly off of our site. And we are very excited to announce that Patricia Ann McNair's Responsible Adults will be available very soon on December 15th, I believe, is the day when you can officially order it, and we will start processing the books. But in the meantime, you can always pre-order the book by going to our site and pressing buy now. And as always, our other titles are on that website as well. And if you want to, you can still purchase off of our Amazon. Amazon does take a cut, so if you would like to support the press more, then purchasing off of our website is definitely the way to do that. So thank you again for listening. I've been Claire, and I will see you next time.